So there is this huge myth that workers' comp policies are not worth agencies' time. One is that you make little to no commission, and two, they are too much work to service. But in this video, I'm going to prove that myth 100% false, coming right up. Hey guys, this is Jonathan with Competent, bringing you all the tips and tools to set your workers' comp book above all others. On this channel, we do a lot of podcast interviews with industry leaders and tips on how to grow your workers' comp book, just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing now. So recently I was speaking to an agent that told me that he does not target comp accounts. And me being a broker, you can understand my frustration. See, he told me that there was too little commission and there was too much service to handle. Says his solution was to avoid workers' comp unless his hand was forced. I'm here to share what I told him that completely changed his mindset and now has this agent targeting the workers' comp market. Then I'm going to dig deep on how to target, underwrite, cross-sell, and a whole lot of valuable tools to help you position yourself in the workers' comp market. Actually, as you're watching this video, let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, as well if anything else stood out to you. You ready to comp it? Let's get over to the workstation. Hey guys, welcome back to Competent. My name's Jonathan, and I'm here to give you a lowdown on how to write workers' compensation. There's going to be a 3-part series here combined in one. I am going to put the time marks in the description of this YouTube video to show you, or so you can skip through to each minute mark if you don't want to listen to this part and just want to listen to a specific part, or if you want to rewatch it, you know exactly where to go to. So let's jump right into it. Today we're going to talk about how to get workers' comp leads. Then we'll follow into the other 2 parts, which are the pre-underwriting and presenting pre-underwriting, and then how to present it to your underwriter, and then how to present it to the insured if you do get a proposal. So first we are going to jump into the how to capture leads. So first I want you to do is get some cities in your area or in your state or a state that you want to market into, and look for industrial areas, or better yet, what I want you to do is look for a target class codes that you would like to write, that your carrier writes. So if you have a partnership with a carrier or a broker that you can work with and then want to go target class codes, ask them what are their top class codes, what mods are they willing to write up to. Get that criteria before you start this, so you're better prepared to write the account. And once you have that information, go to zipmat.net, and then this is just the easy way to find zip codes in the area. I'm sure there's tons of websites out there. This is the one I use. You can zoom out, and it's just really interactive. You can move it around, and the zip codes pop right up. I write down the cities that I want to look into, and then, or the zip codes I want to look into, and then I move on to finding the class codes. So what you want to do once you have class codes that you want to target, you want to go to NCCI, and once you get to NCCI, you want to look for the residual markets tab, which is right on the top. And once you get to the residual marks tab, we're going to go to the expiration list linked up there on the right. And this is basically just a disclaimer saying, hey, this is what we're providing you. They want you to use this list to go after these insureds. They don't want them in the NCCI pool. And I guess I should say this too. If your state is not NCCI state, this won't work for you, but there's several other resources that you can use. I just chose to speak about this one because I use this a lot, and I think this will help a lot of agents get easy leads that they're going to be able to write. And one being is that the insured is paying too much in the NCCI, so if you're able to pull them out, the probability of you getting that count is pretty good, and then able to get the other lines of commercial business will be the percentage will go up too, since you were able to get them out of the NCCI, sometimes saving them up to 40-50%. I think we usually see an average around 20% savings when they're getting out of there. This all depends on the carrier's rates and the class codes that you're writing. So once you get into the residual expiration list, you want just to enter in right here, and I went ahead and filled this so we didn't have to waste time entering all this data. So I am going to show this tutorial into Georgia, but you can choose all the NCCI states right here, and then you can either hit all or multi-state or single state, and you want to make sure you're able to write in. If you choose multi-state, you want to make sure your agency's licensed to write into all those states, because you don't want to come into a problem where you're not able to use it, or use a broker that is typically licensed in most states. Or you can reach out to me. I'm a broker. I'm able to write in all 48 states, all or 46 states that are not monopolistics. So if you need help on one, feel free to message me at compit@gmail.com, or you can show this video to whoever your relationships are, and y'all can work through what targets that you can. But this is a really good application to use to capture leads. I went through and put zip codes in here already. These are zip codes that I thought would pull up the most results for the class codes that I was putting in. The class codes I was putting in are trucking, carpentry, some restaurants, but they're typically heavier risk that have a higher premium, and that my markets typically write more often than your standard Main Street type business. This is the business I go after, the business I write 99% of the time. So that's the reason why I put that in there. Now, if you go down, you want to put the expiration dates in there. I usually put 12 months out. In this case, since it's 1/8/2019 right now, I went ahead and used a 2/28/19 as demonstration purposes. This, you want to leave yourself a few months, because you're not going to be able to turn around a quote for these accounts. Typically, it's going to take a couple weeks, because some of them are either have bad losses, high mods, or they're put into the NCCI pool because they were new ventures or didn't have prior experience. So sometimes those don't click with your current markets. So I chose the cities and the class codes from what I write and what my markets write, and that's the way I did it. At first, let's just go ahead and leave both these bottom ones blank and see what our search results are. It's thinking a little bit. Let that go through. Okay, wow. So this pulled up 550 items. So this will show you the employer's name and address, expiration, zip code, state, the class codes, the governing class codes, their current experience mod if they have one, their total payroll, and their current premium they're paying with NCCI risk. So this is all public information. There's nothing that is personal on here. So this is fine to show on the video. But once you get your list, you want to go through this list and try to narrow it down. Now you got to remember, NCCI rates are extremely high compared to the standard rates. So you don't want to work on accounts with a $1,500 premium in the NCCI, because that would be almost nothing in the standard markets. So what I would like to do is go back and refine the search, and let's put a higher premium up there, say maybe $10,000. That way it will give us at least some premium to play with once we approach that insured. So let's just start with 10,000 here, and we'll go up to 500,000. We'll hit that search button again, and we narrowed it down to one page. So we went to 550 results to 45. So that, I mean, that's actually a pretty good results there. Sometimes it comes back with 3 or 4 or 5. So then we want to look at the governing class code and make sure those are still class codes that we write, their mod, and the premium. So here's some really good premiums out here. So 57,000, 184,000. See, this one right here, this doesn't have a mod, but this one's going to be a good one to go after, because they don't they're going to have 1 year experience coming up, because I assume the only reason they don't have a mod is because they didn't have prior losses. So this one either grew throughout their first year, and so this one's been in business since, or has had a policy since October. So this one's probably a nice account to go after. Then you just have to play with it to see which ones that will fit in your market. Again, some of the best ways to work this list are through brokers, since they do typically write higher risk. But if you have those direct appointments with carriers that are writing tougher risks with higher mods or some loss history issues, you want to obviously work with them first, and secondary work with your broker to see if they can help you out with the account. So after you do this, all you got to do is hit download, and this will download this list into a Excel spreadsheet. And then it's free game after this. So you have all the information that you need to start targeting workers' comp accounts. The best thing I love about doing this, and what I tell a lot of my agencies or agents, is that if you could help your insured save a lot of money, which is typically one of their biggest premium bases, you're going to get that another step into writing their other commercial lines. So you're opening the door here to say, hey, I can save you money on your workers' comp. Let's get this worked out. And then if I can do this, or if you like working with me through this process, how about you give me opportunity to quote your commercial lines, property, GL, or whatever it might be. I think that's always a great intro. Makes you look very professional, makes it seem that you know what you're doing. And then when you pull this list, I'm going to show you now how to do a little bit more research on pre-underwriting, so you're asking the right questions to your insured and presenting that to your underwriter the first time. A lot of my agents get frustrated with turnaround results when we don't have all the information, or if we have to go back and ask a lot of questions. Well, that can totally be eliminated if the producer or the agencies have procedures that when they go out to meet with the insured, they have a packet already available to fill out. So you should be able to get all the questions needed and answered before the underwriting comes back. Now, of course, they're going to come back with some questions, but how nice would it be if they only had 1 or 2 questions instead of a whole essay of questions that they needed? Workers' comp is one of the toughest counts to write because there's so much exposure there. And we have to understand that the carrier does have a lot of exposure, and they want to understand exactly what they're writing, not just because we said so, it's because that we provided the information and documents that says it is true.
All right, guys, we are back for part 2 of content. We're going to go over how to pre-underwrite a workers' comp account. So we're just going to start off with the basics here, and that is going to be with the Accord 130. So in most states, the Accord 130 is the go-to Accord form. If you're in Florida, it's the Accord 130 FL, Florida application. It might differ from other states, but this is the primary Accord app that you're going to need to submit to your carriers, your brokers, and it needs to be completely filled out. I can't tell you on a day-to-day basis how many times I get an Accord that is missing the FEIN number, it's missing locations, it's missing the answers at the bottom. This is not information that we are just making you fill out. They are looking at every single detail on this Accord form to underwrite your account. So you're really doing a disservice by not getting all the answers in on when you submit, because eventually they're going to underwriters are just going to ask you again for that information, or put that file at the bottom until that comes in. So it ultimately delays the processing of underwriting if you do not complete Accord. So first and foremost, please fill out every single line that you can on the Accord form before you submit it. That way you can't delay any, or you're not going to delay any underwriting processes. Now we're going to go through forms that's needed that I believe is a full submission. Again, we're going to go through this Accord first. I'm just going to point out a few of these important sections that you need to fill out. Of course, the mailing address, but the federal ID number is, it's the primary one. It's what reserves your account. If you don't get that on there, they can't pull any information on that account, and it doesn't block the submission from anybody else getting in there. So if you send an incomplete submission in, and then 2 hours later another agent does, you are possibly going to lose that account because you did not completely fill it out. The years in business is always incomplete. The majority of the time, we need to have that information to see how long they've been in business. We use that years to kind of justify how much business management they have and how long they've stayed in business and kept going. So those are good things. Website address, you need to put that in as well. They're gonna search a website. So if you put it in there or not, they're gonna find it. So go ahead and put it in there. Make the underwriter's life a little bit easier by submitting a complete Accord form. Locations, they need to know each location so they know where their exposure is. So if it's spread out through cities, counties, or states, that needs to be located on the location form. If you run out of the locations of these 3, there's additional lines or pages you can get to below. The status of submission, the billing, audit information, this is not very, important information. So this is something that you're probably not going to fill out if it's, just to quote it, or if it's agency or direct bill. Most workers' comp is all on direct bill. I don't know one carrier that I work with is on an agency bill. Everything is on direct bill with most of the standard carriers I work with. You might have some that's on agency bill. The 15 that I work with are all on direct bill. It's very common in the workers' comp industry. That's all direct bill. Makes brokers' life easier. Makes agencies' life easier if they carriers just direct bill those accounts. Audit, you don't really have a choice on if it's at expiration or semi-annually, quarterly, or monthly. If you have a recommendation, you can click that. Typically, that's going to be at an annual or at expiration date by the carrier. If they think that something's going on with the account, they might send out something halfway through the year, but typically that's at the end of the year. Okay, so expiration dates, they need to match up with the loss runs. So when you get the account, or when you go and propose and get this information or recording this information, you want to make sure that you are looking at the expiration dates on the loss runs so they coordinate with each other. So if you see a loss run, you say they're wanting to be effective November 1st, 2019, February 1st, 2019, and their loss run shows it expired on January 1st of 2019, you're going to see that there's going to be a gap in coverage there. So that needs to raise questions for you. Why is there a different effective date? Now, and that stands true throughout the last 3 or 4 years if they have loss runs. Now, if it's a new venture, or if they haven't had prior coverage before, you're not going to run into that type of problem. But you need to go through each year of loss history and make sure every single effective date lines up. If not, that means there's a gap in coverage. If there's a gap in coverage, you need to figure out why. Was it for non-payment? Was it for going out of business? Do they not have workers? Did they not have employees to have workers' comp at that time? There's tons of reasons why that happens, but we need to explain that prior to submitting to the underwriter. Now, again, if you don't get this stuff up ahead of time, the underwriter is just going to come back and ask you the same questions. So the more information we can provide at the time of submission is going to help us with a quicker turnaround and really gain the trust of the underwriter of what's going on with the account. So, I mean, that's half the battle, is getting trust from the underwriters that we're telling the truth, being transparent, and we really want to have the best interest of the insured. So make sure those effective and expiration dates line up. Put the employer's liability on here. If it's 100, 500, 100, if it's all $1 million, make sure it's on there, and because that's a extra premium that's calculated in there. So if it's not in there, they're just going to default it to the probably to the lowest, and then you're going to have, if you come back with a change, that's just another extra step. So let's just make sure that that's on there up front. If the deductibles, if you want any deductibles, you want to go ahead and put it in there as well. The other coverage is the main one I see is USL and H. So if they have any exposure over water, you need to make sure that's checked there, because a lot of workers' comp accounts or carriers do not write USL and H, so it will automatically kick it out. So we need to make sure that this account is going to the correct carrier who writes USL and H. So it's very limited for the carriers that write it. So make sure that box is clicked or checked to make sure it's getting to the right place to quote the account. Some of this stuff, you're just not gonna, some don't have dividend plans. So if this doesn't apply, don't just leave it blank. That's okay. The estimated annual premium, that's okay to leave blank as well. If you don't know, if you do know, or if you know expiring premiums, put those in there, because carriers don't want to waste their time if they're going to be way over in premium. Now, I get a lot of hesitation of people wanting to give me expiring premiums or target premiums, because they think carriers are just going to price it just above, or just milk it as much as they can. I don't see that to stand true most of the time. I'm sure there is carriers that might do that. The ones I work with, the reason they ask for that target premium, because they don't want to spend time on an account that they're going to be 50% over in premium. So if we give them a premium, that gives them an edge to move forward, a little motivation to move forward to beat that premium. So most of my carriers will just say, hey, John, what's the target premium? And if it's not like around 150,000, we're not going to be able to be competitive. So we need to get in our minds that the carriers are not really trying to overprice things. They're really trying to make sure that they are going to spend time on quality accounts that they're going to be competitive in. So when you're asked that question, let's try to give them that information. It really helps the upline of whoever's touching this account to make sure that they're going to be competitive. This other information, when you're at time submission, it's not important to have the contact information. Let's go ahead and get it in there if you can. It's not, you don't have to have in there unless you bind the account. That information has to be in there so they can set up the policy and know where email contacts for servicing the policy. The officers included or excluded need to be in there, because that's how we're going to calculate a policy. If it's included, their payroll is going to be included in there. If it's excluded, obviously we're going to need the officer exclusion forms at the time of binding, but they want to know who those officers are, what the percentage of ownership. So let's make sure that it's completed at time submission. The main thing is getting their state, name, the percentage of ownership, and make sure if there's multiple owners that all adds up to 100%. And then if they're included and excluded, that is if they are included, make sure you put their class code and their payroll in there. Okay, so we got down to the bread and butter here: class codes, payroll. Put that in there. Put the description in there. Please put in how many employees you have. This is another one that is constantly missed or incomplete during submissions. Full-time, part-time. They need to know what their exposure is. They need to know how many employees are under one roof. So let's do them a favor and get this information to them up front. It is vital to their underwriting to make sure they know how many employees are under one roof. So let's go ahead. It's a very simple question. Put it in there, and let's not have to worry about that again. Okay, down to remarks. This is another one that's sometimes incomplete, or it's very, very short. So use this remark box to give a description of the operations, as detailed as you can. If there's a manufacturing, let's let them know what equipment they're using, what's the process they're using, if there's a loading and unloading. They need to know that, and the more information we give them, the more trust that we get from the underwriter. It's not the opposite. We're not going to shy them away from an account by giving them too much information. Now, you have to give them the right information, but let's make sure we're being transparent with the operations so they can underwrite it correctly and we can get a proposal back. So this is a great spot to put the remarks. Now, on the prior carrier information and loss history, depending on how your management system's set up, some come completed on this Accord. It's not it is a lot easier for brokers or underwriters. I mean, really brokers like me. Underwriters look into the detailed loss runs a lot more. But if you're submitting this through a broker, it's easy to look through the loss history right here, but it's not as important as this other information, submitting the updated loss runs. Now, when I mean updated, it has to be within 90 days, validated against the 90 days from the effective date. So 3 months before the effective date, that the loss runs has to be valued at those dates. So make sure they are coming in at that time. So now, the nature of business description down here, I know I said down the remarks up here, but you can do a short version of the nature of business on this one. So if they are doing awning installation, you can just put awning installation. Or if they're doing trucking, you just put trucking. You can just do that right here. I like to do the full details up top, and then do the simple nature of business right here. Okay, then the general information, you need to complete this very easy. Yes, no, yes, no. And if they ask, if it's a yes question, we need to show the percentage of that yes question. If here's one, if they have work over 15 feet, and we need to know what the percentage and what's the max height, because some carriers have different guidelines to this. So some of my carriers will write up to 25 feet. So if you just put yes, I'm gonna have to come back and ask you the question. I'm like, well, do they go up to 25 feet, or what is the percentage over 15 feet, and what's the maximum? So go ahead and write that in to eliminate any back and forth going forward. Subcontractors used, that's another big one. If it's yes, please put the percentage of subcontractors in. And then if they're 1099, if it's 100%, go ahead and answer the question is if they only work for the employee or employer, that means that's going to open up a few more carriers, because they don't like subcontractors that are jumping from employer to employer. But if they have a lot of 1099 workers that only work for one employer, it makes them want to look at the account a little bit more. So let's make sure those general questions are not just defaulted to no, because I get those on roofing accounts, and then I go to question number 3 and it's answered no. Well, I know you're above 15 feet, so that should be answered yes. So that just tells me that somebody just hit no, 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 or had a default Accord 130 and just didn't bother to change it. So let's make sure these are completed accurately. Again, because once we submit these, that's what they're going to go off of. And when they see something that contradicts what the insured actually does, it just kind of makes them think that we didn't spend the time on actually presenting the account in good faith. So that is the Accord 130. So once you get through the Accord 130, that's a great start. But I want you to go a little step further when you get this Accord 130. And if you have a trucking account, a contracting account, a hospitality account, restaurants, the list kind of goes on, but there are specific questions that are needed in addition to the Accord 130. If you really want to be a specialist in workers' comp, I would suggest that you go ahead and bring these questions at your first meeting. Shows that you're professional, shows that you know what you're doing, and it eliminates the back and forth after leaving that office and gathering information. It's so much harder getting information after the first meeting. So bring these questions in while you have their attention and in front of you. So just as an example, I pulled up 2 supplemental questions from Berkshire Hathaway here. And these are general questions or general information. Hours of operation. Does it include driving? What's the governing class code? Do you do MVR checks? Which, if there's any driving exposure for any reason, they need to take that in consideration, and the MVR checks are what they're going to pull. They're going to pull it every single time. If there's driving exposure, they want to know what's the radius. Are they outside 25 miles, outside 50 miles, 100 miles, 100 plus miles? This depends on what their operations are, and we need to know how far they are going. So these are general questions that need to be brought to the insurer's attention. Again, at the first meeting, I suggest you doing this at the first meeting, so this eliminates the back and forth, and it shows your professionalism that you know what you're doing. And now these are general. Now you can go in a little bit more deeper, and here's a contractor supplement that I pulled. And this has another list that you can see. The equipment here, types of machinery and heavy mobile equipment that are used. Is there any use of cranes, booms, or similar heavy equipment? Is the appropriate machine guarding in place and force? So you see what they're going after here. They want to get deep into see what their safety results are, what they have in place, a really deep look into their operations so they can underwrite it correctly. And be honest, be transparent. Don't try to read the underwriter's mind of if this is going to look bad or if this is going to look good. If they come back and they don't like a question, a lot of underwriters are like, all right, well, are they willing to change this type of safety procedure, or are they ready to implement this type of thing? So be very transparent. Carriers want to see that, and I have a better response by underwriters if you approach it in that way. Okay. So you're there, you got the Accord 130, you got these supplementals answered, you took a look around the shop, you took some notes. Okay, where do we go from there? Well, you get back to the office, and we need to verify everything that you learned from that meeting. So here's a couple websites that I suggest going through, and that's your local workers' comp board, and you can go on there and verify their workers' comp coverage to see who they're currently with, and make sure they have something in force. Sometimes you run into a problem or an issue where they told you that they have current coverage, and you come and find out that their coverage expired last week or 2 weeks ago. Your local or your state workers' comp board will have a verification website to go to. This is Georgia's. As far as I know, most states have this type of website. The second one is the Secretary of State. So this is a good website to go to just to verify the legal names and make sure that all of that is matched up from what you recorded. So these are websites that you can use just to your checks and balances with your Accord 130 and your supplemental questions. And then you want to go back to NCCI, and I can't show you because I don't want to have any personal information on there on any insurance, but what you want to do is go to, if you're in an NCCI state, or if you have a local rating bureau that you can go to, and I want you to go there and put in their VIN number, check to see if they have a mod, and if that mod is active, and if there's any additional names insured. So when you go in there, you put in the VIN number, you do your search, you're going to find additional names insured. And if they didn't tell you about those additional names, you need to go back to your insured and ask them who those people are, because the majority of workers' comp carriers are not going to write a part of an account. They want to see the whole entire account. And then if you have 5 businesses under the same VIN number, they're going to want to see what those operations are. And you might have a chance to write part of an account, but they're going to want to see the deck pages, of these other accounts. So let's make sure you're doing your research, and if there's any additional names insured, go ahead and get that information, and so you can attach that into your submission. Then I think that, and then lastly, we just want to put that all together and 130 to the supplemental questions when we do all of our checks and balances, and we put that all together. And then you have your loss run. So you might not collect them on the first appointment, but we want to make that submission with the valued loss runs. Again, that's if it's if it has loss history. If it's a new venture or it doesn't have prior workers' comp, that wouldn't work. But we're talking about if an account has been in business and it has workers' comp, we want to give them as much many loss runs, years of loss runs we can. If they only had one, give them one. But if up to 4 years, I think that's perfect. And once you get those loss runs, make sure they are valued within the 90 days. Then if you see anything that's, let's say, over $10,000, $25,000, and that we explain anything over $25,000 in losses. If it's a fall on off a truck, or if it's a sliced finger, let's make sure we tell them what happened and what they did to prevent those type of injuries in the future. They want to see injury prevention put in place, so they're proactive. They know the insurance proactive after a injury occurs. So once you put all that together, I think that is a full submission. You got the Accord 130, you got the supplemental questions, you got valued loss runs within 90 days, you got your full description of operations, you got your explanation of any claims, any large claims that you can submit. And if you do want to, you can get apply for the drug-free credit as well. Allow, I think it's up to a 5% drug-free credit for, I know that's for the state of Georgia, but $35 fee, and you can save some money on your workers' comp. This is something the insurer can do, submit to their state board of workers' comp, and it saves them some money. So that's something you can suggest your insured doing as well. So guys, this will end the part 2 of how to write workers' comp. I think this is a good, like I said, a good submission. This makes you look professional. This will eliminate any back and forth with underwriters, or to say it will limit any back and forth with underwriters if you submit a full submissions that with accurate information and fully completed accords. This will help you tremendously in the workers' comp industry and gain your trust with your brokers and underwriters. If you have any questions, don't forget you can email me at compitwc@gmail.com. And if you ever need a submission for me to look at, feel free to email that submission as well. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll get to part 3. All right, we're back. Part 3 and our final episode or topic on how to write workers' comp. And this part is really how to sell the policy to your insured. Now you've gone through all the moving parts here, and it's time to present your proposal. You got the proposal in your hands, and you're preparing it to meet with your insured. Your price, you're not sure if it's too competitive, it's competitive, or whatever it might be. Obviously, price is always a playing factor when presenting any type of insurance policy. However, when you're selling a workers' comp policy, I want to focus on claims when you're presenting the account. Of course, the premium needs to be competitive around what they're paying already, but if they know that you can save them money by reducing their claims and in return reducing their mod. That way, you might not save them the first year, but in the years to come, you could save them a lot more money by going with you, because you know how to control their losses. I want you to, so whoever you have a proposal from, make sure you're very knowledgeable of what types of claim services they offer. Most carriers have their services online, and how they deal with claims. For this example, I'm going to use Berkshire because I think their claims department is exceptional, and they offer so much information by industry online. So when you go to present it, you can have these videos, these flyers, and everything else to help management and risk controllers to control their exposure. So present your proposal, tell them the price, but focus on claim management the entire time, because this is what's going to save them in the long run. Getting their losses down, getting a safety plan put in place, those are the things that ultimately lower premiums in the long run. Getting that mod below a 1.0 is what your target is. 1.0 is just your normal standard mod. Anything below means they have had a good loss experience. Anything above means they've had some losses. So here is Berkshire's Safety Center. And whoever you're working with, if it's a broker or a directly to the carrier, go to them and ask them what type of information that you can use to present your proposal to the insured. So here are just some simple things that you can use from trending safety news, the safety resource library, safety technology, and then they have links and organizations from the OSHA, fact sheets, industrial links, safety and organizations. So you want to scroll through here and try to find something that is specific to your insured and what they do. I'll just kind of show you around here real quick. Here's some videos and some flyers. Here we can go through the loss control by industry. Let's just go into healthcare. Here's some PDFs on how they can help you. So if there's a wheelchair transfer, you now become the expert on risk management for your insured on the workers' comp. You can give them these pamphlets, these flyers, and tell them and direct them in a way that will help them control losses. This first one will help you tell them how to transfer people from wheelchairs, probably from wheelchairs to a bed, so it doesn't hurt the nurse or whoever is carrying their lower back. So here's a perfect template on what your flyer that you can give them. So it tells you what is a wheelchair transfer. How do I prepare a person for a wheelchair transfer? So these are things that are just wonderful to have on hand when you are at the insurance place. So go through these websites and see what you think best fits your insured. If they're having past losses that are from wheelchair transfers, or if there's from slipping, you want to pull these flyers to say, hey, look, this is what we can do to solve your problem. And this is why you are setting up a plan for them to put into place to lower their exposures. There is powerlifting techniques. There's PowerPoints. PowerPoints are great for management to give to present to their own team. So you're not just giving this as a selling point, but they're actually going to be able to use this information at safety meetings, any kind of thing that they want to improve safety features or safety programs within their industry or within their operations. So these are from the carrier themselves teaching your insured on how to better their safety culture within their operations. So dig through this. This is the selling point. This is what workers' comp is all about. It is about loss control. It's about lowering their exposure to slips and falls, lower back injuries, cuts, sprained knees, ankles. Use this. Great resources. Almost every single carrier has this type of program. Maybe not as in depth as Berkshire, but they have something they can give you. Get a safe environment for their employees to work in. I mean, that's what they need to be doing. They need to be creating a safe environment for their employees to come in on a daily basis and not have to worry about getting hurt or missing work or missing pay, being able to go home to their families and as they went to work earlier that morning. So these are resources that you need to use. I can't stress it enough how good the carriers put together their loss control. That's why they're there. That's why we have workers' comp in place. So use your resources. Become an expert in workers' comp by reading through this stuff. And I'm telling you, if you do these things that we go through in this series, you become an expert in workers' comp. Okay. Now, thank you so much for listening to this series. I hope this helped you. Again, leave a comment below or email me at competwc@gmail.com, and I will get back to you with any questions or and answer them as they come in. Thank you so much, and if you have a topic that you want me to touch base on in a future video, just let me know and we'll get to that. Thank you again so much. This is Jonathan, and we will comp it later on.
So I hope you found this training valuable. I have included all the links in the description below, and if there's a comp account I can look at for you, just email me at compit@gmail.com. and I will personally look over the account and direct you into the right direction. Also, feel free to reach out to me for any advice you need to better help you in the comp market. Okay, question of the day. What industry do you want to target, and how will you penetrate that market in 2019?